has been placed on the COVID-19 list. John Robinson just concluded a press conference. We're going to let you hear from the Titans GM here in just a second. We'll replay some of those comments for you bit by bit. But it's unfortunate that that's the way that we start today's show. We will have your full reaction to this news. Ryan Tannehill is now one of, let's count them, shall we? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 players plus a head coach dealing with COVID or the COVID protocols. It has become a messy situation. It's beyond a messy situation, and it really depresses me. Honestly, like, I was just having this conversation. I have conversations with myself in the car when I'm driving into work because I'm a bit of a sociopath. Just having this conversation with myself driving into work today. I'm like, I'm really excited for football season. I really am. Last year was such a drag. I had nothing for college last year because of the way that was completely mutated by the amount of games that had to be rescheduled or missed, or you didn't know on a Wednesday if your team was playing on a Saturday. At least with the NFL, there was, I don't know if I should say this, but like I rather enjoyed Tuesday night and Wednesday night football, even as I knew that the circumstances that we were all playing these games through was a bit absurd. So now this news comes down today, and it felt like it was getting ready to snowball once you saw a couple more guys test positive, or were placed on the COVID list. Being placed on the COVID list does not necessarily indicate a positive test. We should clarify that. We do not know if Ryan Tannehill has COVID-19, only that he's been placed on the reserve COVID-19 list. Now, I'm sure that will come out in the coming days, but again with this, and these are all guys that are vaccinated. John Robinson just got finished saying that 97% of this team is vaccinated, including the quarterback, who talked about this a couple of weeks ago, said the NFL, he wouldn't have got the vaccine if the NFL forced his hand, and, I frankly, I said good, then the NFL did its job. So now Ryan Tannehill, it's unclear whether he's displaying symptoms. That information was not disclosed. We know that when we last spoke with Mike Vrabel, that Mike Vrabel was experiencing almost non-existent symptoms, in his own words. But now you're talking about Harold Landry, Jeff Swaim, Justin March Lillard, who's a reserve linebacker, Jeremy McNichols, Nick DeZubnar, Anthony Rush, and Ryan Tannehill on the COVID-19 list. It really upsets me to think about the idea that we could be going through, potentially, understanding that we all at least have the vaccine available to us, and that last season that wasn't the case. It really depresses me to think that this coming football season could look very similar to what last year did. I mean, think about the headspace that we were all in last August. Like, I think a lot of people were excited about just having the prospect of sports back, whether that was the NHL and the NBA returning, or having college and football at college and the NFL to some degree, even though, we understood what was going to go on around it and how much different this might look and how much worse the product might be to experience, because the circumstances around it were not ideal. I have no interest in doing doom and gloom radio. I'm really going to avoid that today. But at this point, with Bruce Arians' comments all but sick-shaming the Titans, when the reality of the situation is nobody got COVID until the team went to Florida for 5 or 6 days, which is about the least surprising thing humanly possible. Now, the Titans are not pointing fingers, and the Buccaneers are, which makes this situation difficult. And again, Mike Vrabel will speak to the media at 1:30 via Zoom today, indicating that he has at least not had 2 negative COVID tests in his return to, I guess not return to play, but return to coaching protocol, needing 2 negative tests within a 48-hour period to be able to resume normal activities or go through a 10-day quarantine situation. I mean, listen, we could take the low ground, since Mike Vrabel and the Titans have not, they've chosen to hold themselves above the fray. Because I'm sitting there looking at what Bruce Arians is saying, and listen, I have a ton of respect for Bruce Arians. I think that his position on COVID-19 has been absolutely the correct one, in how he has managed his players. But I'm also looking at the headline on First Take today, is Bruce Arians holding his team on house arrest during the regular season. And I would be largely fine with that, to be honest with you, if it wasn't the fact that he was pointing the finger at the Titans because Ryan Suckup went to a dinner with some friends on the team who, by the way, none of these individuals, and I'm comfortable reporting this, none of these individuals who are on the list were at the dinner with Ryan Suckup, who also has tested positive for COVID-19. So the whole he said, she said bleep, Lucas, stay close to the dump button today because I'm pissed. The whole he said, she said situation that Bruce Arians and the Buccaneers are starting to pull, frankly, I think it is just a bold assumption by anybody. And the idea that we're going to sick shame people right now is laughable to me, especially after how ridiculous last season looked. And you realize that there is not anybody who is not outside of the reach of COVID-19 impacting their workflow, their day-to-day. John Robinson's talking about people he know in the last couple of days who have passed away from this thing. Like, this is such an irritation to me. It's beyond an irritation because we've been in it for 19 months, and for whatever reason, we still haven't figured out how to properly handle it. And I'm not even talking about from a governmental standpoint. I'm talking about it from a societal standpoint. Who the hell is anybody, Bruce Arians or anybody in between, to be pointing fingers right now? I hate that approach. It's such, yes, people in the YouTube chat are telling me Tannehill now on the COVID list. Yes, thank you, I know. I appreciate you guys keeping a lookout. If you want to get involved with this, if you have thoughts, opinions on the matter, we welcome them today. 615-737-1045. We're going to play some of these comments for you, Lucas. I don't know. That press conference just ended, so I don't want to put Lucas on the spot if he doesn't have John Robinson audio to play. So we will have some of his comments here in just a second. If you would like to jump in on the conversation, you may do it via Zone TV on YouTube, Facebook Live, Twitter, and Twitch. You may do it via the phone lines, 615-737-1045, 737-1045. So John Robinson has just concluded this press conference. He was talking about players on the COVID list and the vaccination percentage of the team. Let's hear from the Titans GM.
Aaron Brewer passed his physical, so he'll be out here doing some individual work, trying to get back to the return to play. We're going to add 3 players, Javian Hawkins, running back, Cash Malua, linebacker, and DB Nate Brooks to the roster. And we're going to put on COVID IR Justin March Lillard, Jeff Swain, and Ryan Tannehill. Just to comment on where we're at with the protocols, we follow the protocols. Our medical team has done an outstanding job with talking with the league and the players, coaches. Coach Vrabel has had minimal symptoms. It's usually a day or two, and then they're over, and they feel great, and that's really what the main reason was: A, to update you on the roster, and B, to just continue to urge vaccination. I've seen it firsthand with the guys. Coach Vrabel can speak to this. It's a couple days, and then they feel fine. I've had 2 people that I know personally that have lost loved ones over the last couple days to COVID from symptoms and complications, and it's a life-saving vaccine.
That's Titans general manager John Robinson talking to the media today. I mean, literally not even 10 minutes ago. What do you think he was gonna? Do you think he meant to build up the suspense like that when he starts listing off the players on the COVID list and he gets to Tannehill last? Or you think he was just trying to, put it off for as long as he could? I shouldn't laugh. This is serious because people on at least on Facebook Live, Reggie Johnson Jr. is telling me, "Calm down, Buck. Don't blow a gasket." Why the hell shouldn't I? This pisses me off.
It feels like last year.
I'm so sick of this bleep. For a variety of different reasons, okay? It is and I'm in a different position, right, than a lot of people. I have a microphone in front of my face with which to express myself, and maybe that's not always a good thing because I can get in my head about this stuff. But I have struggled, as so many people have struggled over the last almost 2 years at this point, since that damn tornado rolled through North Nashville and rolled for about 30 miles through Middle Tennessee to the pandemic happening weeks after that, and now everything, I mean, that you're looking, it just feels like every time you turn on the television or scroll on your Twitter timeline, whether it's sickness or natural disaster, it has given me legitimate angst. So to tell me not to blow a gasket, because I know the vast majority of that doesn't have to do with sports, but it also does. It has to do with society and all of us who are going through it together, or trying to go through it together as best as humanly possible. And forgive me if I'm dealing with it in a way that really bothers me. I am so distressed at the idea that we could go through understanding that vaccinations have started and we're already to the point where people are talking about booster shots and things of that nature. I am so distressed at the idea that we have not found a way, and I understand that it's incredibly difficult to do, and I wish I had more answers than to just vent on air about this stuff because nobody wants to hear about my problems. But I feel like I'm speaking for a lot of people out there. And I don't want to cast a wide net. I'm not saying that this is everybody has to feel the way that I feel, because I feel like most people just want to ignore it, move on because it hasn't physically affected their lives or touched the lives of somebody that they love. But at this point, I don't know how the hell it couldn't. It's over. It hovers over everything. And I don't want to go into another football season with just this impending sense of dread. And I know it's just guys being placed on the COVID list, but it's not just guys getting placed on the COVID list, because we've seen how quickly last year that can snowball. We're not even a week 1 yet. So we'll see if we can't brighten up the proceedings. I know Ben Standig, I hate to drop Ben Standig in the middle of this because I'm clearly not in the mood to pivot to something that is not as serious, but we are going to try and keep things on the rails today. The Titans are practicing right now. We'll have their comments, their media availability post-practice. Mike Giardi of the NFL Network is going to be here as well because he's based out of New England, and the Patriots are dealing with a COVID situation too, and a quarterback conversation that I want to have over the course of today. You guys, you're welcome. I hope that we can have a respectful conversation. I hope that you guys are willing to have this conversation with me because stuff like this can get messy, and I promise you that nobody is more tired of this crap than I am. But if you want to jump in, you can do it on Zone TV. You can do it on the phone lines. Ben Standig coming up next. I'm Buck Reising. This is 104.5 The Zone.
The Install with Greg Cosell gives you an inside look into the film life of senior producer for NFL Films and NFL Matchup, Greg Cosell. The Install with Greg Cosell, joined by Buck Reising, every Wednesday afternoon at 6. Download now at Apple Podcast, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcast.
You have something special. You have greatness in you. Hello, this is Les Brown, and I'd like to invite you to join me and my friend, New York Times best-selling author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki, at the Get Motivated Business Seminar, Thursday, September the 9th in Nashville. I'll be there with Tennessee Titans head coach Mike Vrabel and America's top experts on sales marketing, business skills, team building, and so much more. The best part is that it's only $9 per person to attend and change your financial future. That's right, just $9. That's almost free, but you got to have some skin in the game. Go to getmotivated.com now to reserve your seats for the Get Motivated Seminar, Thursday, September the 9th at the Municipal Auditorium. I'll be there with Robert Kiyosaki and Coach Mike Vrabel, and we want to see you there too. Go to getmotivated.com now. Come on, join me. You got to be hungry.
At Firehouse Subs, a portion of every purchase helps provide life-saving equipment to first responders across the country. Like
super strident in the last segment. And maybe that's how I always am, but I'm just noticing it more today because I'm irritated. But I'm trying to find ways to make jokes out of this. Now, hopefully we of course, updating you on the latest that the Titans have had several guys, including quarterback Ryan Tannehill, go on the COVID list today. Practice has started. A.J. Brown and Julio Jones are out there, so at least if you're talking about close contacts, we await the incubation period to see how much more widespread this thing could potentially be. But from a close contact standpoint, it is better that you see them out there. Now, this becomes a complication, right? Because just as Julio Jones is returning,
Yeah.
Ryan Tannehill's like, I'm going to take a couple days.
Unbelievable.
I'm going to quarantine for a minute. See you guys week one.
Literally, assuming he gets a little more work in today than he did yesterday, because obviously it was just kind of half-speed stretch warm-up type stuff yesterday, right, for Julio Jones.
Right. Well, he's practiced, so that would have been Tuesday. But yeah, your point is well
right.
taken.
Tuesday.
And if you want to get involved, 615-737-1045. Our friend Ben Standig of the Athletic will join us here in just a little bit. He allowed us a little more room to work, given that there's been substantial news here this morning. So he will join us, and he did do a very interesting survey of the NFL agents on contracts, free agents, trades that were made this year, and some really good quotes on the Julio Jones to the Titans situation that I wanted to run back. We obviously booked this before discovering that Ryan Tannehill would be placed on the COVID list. But for the purposes of the offense, it's not the worst case scenario, because the worst case scenario is something knocks one of these guys out for the season. Now, again, not necessarily understanding the long-term implications for everybody of getting COVID. We understand that, so we can only work within the confines of what we do know. So, on the bright side, if you're looking for it, it is never good to have a COVID-19 infection. But if you're talking about for the purposes of the season, and I don't mean to be cold and insensitive that way, but I think most of you understand that I'm genuine in my concern for these guys, to not just treat it as a, who next up situation. Maybe make a joke about, well, now they have to keep both Matt Barkley and Logan Woodside because their main quarterback's on the COVID list. But
Well, we now know we won't see him on Saturday.
Yeah, definitely not going to be out there.
Yeah, if we didn't know before, we know now.
And to that point, because I'm sure people have questions about how could this potentially affect the preseason game on Saturday against the Bears, safe to assume that, and really, I shouldn't say the word assume about any of this, because there's a lot that we don't know. But John Robinson made the implication today at his press conference, having just concluded about 20 minutes ago, that there would not be any implications for the preseason game on Saturday, which at least makes you feel better. Now, they cannot know that without certainty, because there are still a couple of days to go. And as we know, the incubation period can be complicated for some people. But more than anything, and Julio Jones, by the way, has just run off after the stretch period. So I guess if Ryan Tannehill isn't practicing, he's like, what's the point? Do you know he's practiced before? So do we count today as a practice for Julio Jones? Do you want to count today if he's out there for
do we
stretch?
count Tuesday? If we count Tuesday, we count today, right?
No,
He
because
did a little more.
At least Tuesday, he was going 11 on 11 jog through, though it may have been.
Right.
Like, that's actually the running of route concepts and working with the quarterback. This is literally, he just went through the stretch and jogged back into the facility.
Part of me thinks that people just want to see him in a uniform, right? Just see him in pads, like, okay, and just be reassured by that.
This is happening in other places too, by the way. Andrew Vollert and left tackle Eric Fisher of the Colts have both just been placed on the COVID list. So, Cam Newton, Cole Beasley, like, this is all you saw the, I'm sure many of you saw the tweet this morning from Bills wide receiver Isaiah McKenzie. Apparently they just have the anti-vax committee in the wide receiver room in Buffalo. Like, I don't know what's going on there.
It's their home base.
It's where they planted the flag of ignorance. Right there in the middle of Buffalo. Wings and Rona. Come get some.
The McKenzie thing could be the dumbest thing in sports this week.
Because there's a difference. So what Bruce Arians is doing is sick-shaming people, all right? Can we play? Because I love Bruce Arians. This really pisses me off to hear him say this, because now he's become public enemy number one in Tennessee. But Bruce Arians, so he was talking This would have been on Monday or Tuesday. I believe it was on Tuesday. He's talking about the fact that he announces to the media corps that Ryan Suckup has COVID. So let's start there. Let's set the table with that.
Yeah, I mean, it was everything. It was all contacts were outside. We had one that went to dinner with some guys that did test positive today. So he went to dinner with some Titan friends, and that was Ryan Suckup. And so he's out for this ball game.
All right, so real quick, him saying, Bruce making the implication that Suckup got COVID from that dinner, and so that's why he's out on Saturday or whenever the Bucks play. What a ridiculous leap, because I know for a fact that none of the players on the COVID list, for the 7 of the Titans on the COVID list, none of those guys were at the dinner with Ryan Suckup. So if I started to see some different names there, fine. But this I know for a fact. So bad implication by Bruce. Then he doubles down yesterday, speaking to the media.
I mean, for us, life is not normal. I mean, we're pretty much under the same protocols. We're going to be under the same protocols as last year, just because that's the way it is, especially living here. And, I mean, Tennessee come in and going out to dinner, they found out the hard way, and so did Ryan. So we can only tell them so much. But once we get to 53, even this weekend, our guy's going to make a bunch of sacrifices that you have to make now. Families at the hotel, all those things, they're all out the window. There's league rules and there's my rules. They ain't going anywhere. We're going the same as last year.
So Tennessee found out the hard way, and then there's league rules, and then there's my rules. All right, Bruce. Like you're not living in the epicenter of COVID-19 itself. Like it literally crawled out of the swamp of Florida and onto the shores of Tampa Bay.
I was going to say, he's in Florida. So
I mean, and listen,
he kind of is.
But he's been great about this. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Like from the jump, Bruce Arians and Ron Rivera have been two of the most front-facing voices, if that even makes sense, but you know what I'm saying. They've been out there more than any other people in the NFL about the situation. Maybe Mike Zimmer with the Vikings, because he's pissed off too about the way that this is going with his team. So how the hell are we sitting there pointing fingers at this? It's just, it's such an irritate, and I'm not going to spiral back into what I did the first segment, because I feel like I'm going to annoy people if I keep doing that. I literally told Lucas during the commercial break, I said, hey, if I get to be too whiny and complaining today, like just throw a Liam Neeson at me, throw some sparklers at me, like let's just lighten this thing up a little bit so to knock me off my death spiral that I was going into to start the show. But I do find it a ridiculous assumption to say that Tennessee found out the hard way, like his dudes aren't doing the exact same thing right now. I appreciate Bruce's opinion of himself and holding his team to a higher standard, because I do believe him to be genuine when he says that he's talking about a situation, there's league rules and then there's my rules. That I respect. That is a championship mentality that you're going to go above and beyond what everybody else is doing to make sure that you can achieve the ultimate goal. I do have respect for that. But when you start making careless allegations about where your dudes that tested positive may have gotten it from, I'm sorry, but we cannot be doing the sick shaming thing again playing football in the middle of a pandemic. I hate to bring Ben Standig of The Athletic into the middle of this conversation, because today has already been a bleep show, Ben. But I appreciate you taking some time to join us. I hope your morning's going a little better than it is in Tennessee.
Yeah, I see you guys have some news going for sure. Big news at that. So yeah, I'm hanging in there. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So Ben is here today because of a piece that he wrote for theathletic.com. At theathletic.com, at the Athletic NFL is where you can find it. He took a survey of NFL agents on a lot of these deals, 33 different representatives across the league of a lot of these deals, a lot of these transactions, trades, free agency, things of that nature that came to pass over the last offseason. So I guess, Ben, kind of set the stage for the audience to why this is a fun piece for you to write, and what kind of information you were able to glean about the league from their perspective.
Sure. This is the third survey that I've done, and obviously in covering, I cover the Washington football team primarily, and doing so, you gotta talk to agents. Some view it as necessary evil. Some view it as, hey, that's obviously this is an important source, and that's kind of how I view it. Because sure, they're not on the field playing. They're not calling the plays from the sidelines. They're not drafting or signing players. They're not paying the players. But they're at the intersection of all of these things. They're representing the players either to get new contracts or, they even just, the lower end just to try to get a shot at a training camp spot. Or, they have to deal with these teams, not just for this one player, but for players for years to come. And how do you balance that relationship, being firm for what you need in the moment, but knowing that you got to come back to them at some point and so on. So, and they don't just talk to one team. They, in theory, talk to all the teams. And at all different stages of the NFL calendar. So that's what makes, to me, an interesting source to get their perspective, because they do have it on a lot of different fronts. They're really at the intersection of a lot of what goes on in the NFL.
So this last offseason, unlike any offseason before it, for obvious reasons, for the reasons that we're talking about, Ryan Tannehill on the COVID list today in Tennessee, the market at several positions, particularly wide receiver, was as stunted as any season that I've seen before. Now, we understand that the salary cap took about a $16 million haircut this year, so this was going to be the effect no matter what the position. But what did your conversations kind of bear out about how difficult it was to find deals for some of these guys, even dudes who were at the top of the market, like Kenny Golladay, for example?
Yeah, for sure. One of the questions posed was sort of what was the most interesting contract or deal, or what was the best move, or whatever, sort of some of a nebulous kind of a topic. And one that came up a lot was the wide receiver market. Juju Smith-Schuster with Pittsburgh was one that came up specifically because it was view initially that he could get a pretty lucrative contract. He ended up signing a pretty meager 1 year, $8 million. I mean, meager for NFL, high profile receivers, not for me. And there was I think part of the issue is, and I don't know how much of this was in the story, but just part of it was, the wide receiver market as a whole is pretty flooded these days. Every year there's tons of guys coming into the league who look to be pretty interesting players at that position. And then you have some unique circumstances with like an Allen Robinson on a franchise tag, and ultimately he didn't make it out there. But Kenny Golladay, I think he actually ended up getting paid a pretty decent amount, but it was kind of a weird structure in the sense that it came like a week after free agency started. Some people kind of knocked the Giants for even giving him perhaps a fair market deal when it felt like his options had dwindled. But overall, yeah, it's a pretty tough market right this year in particular. I think in part because there's just a lot of options out there.
So Ben Standig of The Athletic here with us on 104.5 The Zone. To that end, speaking specifically with a wide receiver transaction, not a free agent signing, but a trade that was done here in Tennessee, one of the biggest moves of the offseason was Julio Jones coming from the Falcons to the Tennessee Titans. It seems like you got mixed reviews from representatives on this particular transaction. Were you surprised by the kind of answers that you got?
Yes and no. I mean, I think that I never really believed, for example, he was in play for Washington, but you have to obviously consider Washington doesn't have. They've got some good receivers, but they don't have anybody at his level. Not many teams do, obviously.
Right.
And so you look at the situation, right? He's battled injuries the last couple of years. He also has a massive contract, and these are kind of risks that if the team feels that they're on the cusp of contending, then maybe it makes sense to do it. It feels like the Titans did that, and I think some agents understood that and felt comfortable with it. I think others thought, though, that it was just maybe too much of a risk. For the reasons I just said. Also, there was a component of, hey, did Atlanta really even get enough? Or what's Atlanta thinking here? So it was interesting on this one, particularly on both ways. But I think in general, people respected the fact that the Titans, a team that's been, in the mix the last couple of years, but hasn't quite got obviously over the hump to the Super Bowl, that this might have been a worthy risk, looking at everything involved.
So this is not one of the questions that was included, Ben, but I'm curious. You may not have an answer for this. How often in your conversations with these guys do you talk about the idea that some teams, because you bring up the Titans basically going for it in a way that not a lot of teams are comfortable doing, that whether it be this season or last season or any other season before it, how often do you have conversations with agents about basically, are they surprised by how little some teams are doing to actually try and win?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely some of that. Look, obviously, you can read into some of these answers and probably see some bias that
Sure.
creeps in, because of his experiences agents have had with certain teams or certain circumstances, and that goes into say when they talk about, sometimes if they talk about, well, this team isn't doing enough, it's probably because they had a guy on that team who got spurned or didn't get a deal that they thought. The NFL does have a minimum, there's a floor you have to spend to. So ultimately, everybody has to spend enough, and there's a recognition that some teams like the Texans and probably the Jaguars this year are in a rebuild mode. I think most of the time it's more just about they don't understand what a team is doing from a why did you sign this guy, why did you trade for that guy, what are they doing as opposed to spending. But yeah, there obviously are certain circumstances where they get curious, like, hey, what's going on here?
With the one of the answers there, one of the questions that I found most interesting was the one that you posed to these guys or guys and gals about whether quarterbacks should have a say in organizational decisions. Obviously, Tom Brady who should have been frankly voted executive of the year last year for the way that he pulled the Buccaneers roster together around what they already had. And then the conversation about Aaron Rodgers throughout the course of this offseason, how much he felt disrespected and kind of made, whether it was him making a public show or Adam Schefter making a public show on Aaron Rodgers' behalf. How dangerous is that line, though? Because you're not only dealing with a player's motivations, but sometimes their teams, for lack of a better term, a term that drives me crazy, but the team around them can also have influence on an organization's decision because of the player that they represent.
Yeah, I always go back to, for me, I don't know if this is when it started, but, when Phil Jackson coached the Chicago Bulls with Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, and the team that we saw in the Last Dance documentary and all. And the thing that always stood out to me about Phil Jackson was, I don't know if he's the best X's and O's coach, if I have to design a perfect play at the end of the game, or, what's the strategy to stop the opponent. But what clear was, he was very good at diffusing situations and managing personalities. And I think one thing that was discussed a lot, and it seems obvious to me as well, is too many of these teams and too many executives are not very good at that. And it feels like maybe that had something to do with what was going on in Green Bay. But there's some blame to go with Aaron Rodgers. He's got a stubborn streak. He's got his own issues as well. But if you're a team that doesn't recognize the power that this guy has, not to mention, as Aaron Rodgers himself pointed out in that epic press conference, there's a lot of institutional knowledge here. And, if you're going to build around the team around this guy, quarterback, the most important position, he's been one of the best players at that position in the history of the sport. It does seem logical that you would want to get his input into what's happening and why. What do you think we should do? Which is different than saying, hey, Aaron Rodgers thinks we should draft a left tackle in the first round. Let's do that. No, that's why you do have executives. That's why there is a separation. You're an employee. You're a player. You're not the executive. You have to make these other calls. But it does seem like teams who are good at handling personalities and people understand, hey, we have to listen to them at least to a degree. What you do with that information is another story, but I think he probably felt he wasn't getting listened to enough, and I think that was part of the problem.
Ben Standig of The Athletic. You can go check out his work, his NFL Agent Survey, the third edition of this kind of reporting, out at theathletic.com. Well worth your subscription. Ben, I appreciate you being flexible with us. It's been a bit of a morning here, but it's always good to chat.
Yeah, no problem. Best of luck with everything there, and I hopefully talk again.
Yeah, Ben Standig of The Athletic here with us on 104.5 The Zone. All right, we'll come back and we'll talk about the NFL and what they are doing to handle the COVID protocols around the league, because they've just rolled out something for players for the first time today. And some of these guys, Isaiah McKenzie, cough, cough, well, maybe not cough, cough, because that's taboo right now, are responding to it poorly. We'll tell you what's going on coming up next. I'm Buck Reising. This is 104.5 The Zone.
It's the third and final preseason game, and the Titans welcome Justin Fields and the Chicago Bears to Nissan Stadium. Thank you, NFL, for shortening the preseason and giving us an extra regular season game. What a catch! Mike Keith and Coach Mack have the kickoff Saturday night at 6 on your home for Titans football and flagship for Titans radio. 104.5 The Zone.
epiphany. Figured it out, Lucas. I don't think I've let you talk once today. You okay back there?
I've talked.
Have you?
Yeah.
It's just, I just haven't been hovering over this thing. We haven't said gas bag in a while, but just a giant looming cloud of hot air hovering in front of the microphone, hogging the ball. I figured it out though. My shorts are incredibly long today.
Oh.
They're covering all of my thigh. It's the first time that this has happened basically since like April when I started wearing shorts again. It's laundry day, and they straight up almost come down to my knees. It's offensive.
And the sky is out.
The sky is out, but the thighs, they are being restricted. It's directly affecting the blood flow to my brain, I feel. So I think that's the cause of my angst and my anxiety. It's because I had to put on grown-up shorts today to come into work. 615-737-1045 is how you get involved over the course of today's show if you want to react to any of the news. Ryan Tannehill going on the COVID list. You've got Harold Landry there, Jeff Swaim. The good news being what you can find of it. Forgive that sigh. I'm trying. There's 7 guys on the COVID list right now over the course of the last 3-4 days. But there are dudes returning. Julio Jones, even if he just went through stretch today, that's important. A.J. Brown, this is his 3rd practice in a row since Adam Schefter reported a knee injury. I don't know. He doesn't seem to think that report is accurate, by the way. A.J. Brown, because he was muttering something about propaganda while he was walking off the practice field.
Just under his breath.
Just spitting generally at anybody that would.
Schefter got that from somebody.
Oh, sure. And
that was an Adam Schefter thing.
It's and more off almost every time. All right. Because Schefter's not perfect. None of us are. We all get stuff wrong from time to time. But Schefter's word you can take as near gospel. 615-737-1045. Now, sometimes it lacks the context because he's been in some murky waters lately, Schefter has. Whether it's the Aaron Rodgers thing on draft day where he wasn't necessarily reporting the news, but he was reporting conversations being had around the subject matter. Whether it's what happened with Dak Prescott a couple weeks ago where he basically said he made a comment on one of these ESPN shows about Dak may not be right for the rest of the season, may not be healthy for the rest of the season, and people ran with it as a report. He had to put out, not a retraction, but he basically had to walk back his comments after he said it. So Schefter's been in this weird middle ground lately. And maybe people are just taking it. Shocking to know when people on the internet are just taking things too literally. 615-737-1045. Danny is in Murfreesboro. He wants to weigh in. What's up, Danny?
Hey, what's up, Buck? I just wanted to talk about Bruce Arians for just a second. I'm kind of curious. Not really curious. I'm not curious at all. I know exactly how I feel about it, actually. Bruce Arians can, screw himself with a cactus, man.
Oof.
He has no business and no right and just no business making vague and unsubstantiated assumptions that a dinner that people who don't even have COVID attended are somehow the cause of a COVID outbreak amongst vaccinated people 3 states away from him. It's the most irresponsible, pig-headed, dangerous thing that he could have said in this situation because he doesn't know what the hell he's talking about.
I don't disagree, honestly, Danny. And like I said, I hate it because I love Bruce Arians. I respect the man. But now he's public enemy number 1 in Tennessee. You saw the way, or at least you heard the way, you may have read the way that Mike Vrabel handled it after he tested positive. Because I remember very clearly after he announced to us that he announced to all of us on, what was that, Sunday, while I'm sitting in an airport surrounded by Florida COVID people waiting to get on the plane. He said that he tested positive, and Teresa Walker of the AP, her follow-up was, well, do you have any idea how you may have gotten it? And he basically said, yeah, I apologize, Teresa, but we're not going to get into all that. That's not a productive exercise. And then what does Bruce Arians do? He just turns around and says, Tennessee, learn the hard way. So our kicker, he's got COVID because he went to dinner with a bunch of Titans, except ignoring the fact that none of the Titans were on the COVID list, whether they've tested positive or not, were at that dinner. So reckless assumptions being made all around. This is, and by the way, the cactus visual, that's a tough one. That sounds very uncomfortable. That's much more unpleasant than when I tell people to sit and spin. 615-737-1045 if you want to jump in on the conversation, or just, as Danny did, just rip Bruce Arians' head off. What we are going to talk about, though, over the course of today, and by the way, the Titans are on the practice field right now. We'll have their media availability. I know that Mike Vrabel will speak via Zoom at 1:30. I'll be on that conference call, and I assume, Lucas, that you'll carry that on Blaine and Mickey. We're not sure who's going to speak to us at the podium today. We've had Shane Bowen. We've had Todd Downing, so one would assume that Craig Aukerman, who's been kind of assuming the head coach responsibilities, or at least running the practices like he is the associate head coach or alternate head coach or interim head coach, however you want to phrase it. I would assume that we hear from Craig Aukerman at some point, but that has not yet been confirmed. There are a lot of holes in this that you're trying to fill in the gaps of. You're trying to piece together the information. Here's the biggest thing, though, here's the biggest thing that I look at this and say why I feel that Bruce Arians is being so incredibly reckless about his comments. The timeline for the incubation period doesn't line up with Suckup and then the rest of these guys. So it's not a perfect science, obviously, but more often than not, it's about 5 days after exposure that you start to see guys pop up with positive tests. In this case, we're talking about nearly 7 days, a full week that has passed between the dinner itself and guys starting to test positive for COVID-19. So if you're just simply to look at the precedent for the incubation period and the timeline thereafter, nothing is a safe assumption when it comes to COVID. But in this particular sense, the timeline doesn't add up for the kind of things that Bruce Arians is saying publicly in a way that I do agree is very, very reckless. Aukerman is not there, says Amy. So apparently for the practices, that's interesting. I'm obviously not at practice today because we're doing the radio show. They moved practice time up. I'm not happy about it, but what are you going to do? So basically, instead of taking attendance with the players today, I had asked a couple of people in my Titans media group chat to see, and this was going to be the plan anyway, to take coaching attendance today. Because that's far more, it's not more concerning. Any of these positive tests or being placed on the COVID list concern me. But I want to know, coaches have the ability, because of the rooms that they're working in, to affect far more people than just one individual player. 615-737-1045. You guys are loading up the phone lines. We'll come back. We will react to all of these things. We'll tell you what's going on at Titans practice as well. I'm Buck Reising. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Coming up today on the 3HL.
It's Thirsty Thursday. What are y'all thirsty for?
I'm thirsty for football. And if you're talking football, you know who we need to talk to. Greg Cosell, he's on the show.
And we got Waverly Football's head coach, Coach Bolden.
Yes.
I've been through it.
We need to know more about what's going on in Waverly and how you guys can help. So we'll share.
Today, starting at 3 p.m. on 104.5 The Zone.
side with some quarterback competitions, particularly the one that he is based at right now, which is Patriots camp. We'll talk to him about the COVID protocols and what's happening around the league as well. You'll hear from John Robinson. You'll hear from a handful of people who will be at the podium after the Titans conclude practice today. They are currently on the field right now. I'm laughing not because of what's happening today. I'm laughing because I have to laugh today. Otherwise, I'll just start, for the people watching on Zone TV, just start slamming my head against the console over and over again until some of this stuff starts to hurt my head less. But I'm laughing today because anytime I need a pick-me-up, the Jags do something dumb, and Urban Meyer is once again in the headlines this morning, which gives me endless delight. I don't root against, maybe I do, and I have no rooting interest, but I think I kind of root against Urban Meyer in a way that I'm starting to discover now. I just find him so thoroughly distasteful.
Many people are saying this.
Many people are saying this. It's true. Many people have been saying this for a long time before I did. But, I've never had a reason to dislike Urban Meyer, and then I'm just looking at this clown show that's being run in Jacksonville, and I want to laugh. So we'll do that later. First, let's go to Scott in Bethpage, who leads us off this morning. Hello, Scott.
Hey, what's up, Buck?
Nothing.
Real quick, am I coming in?
Yes, you're coming in.
Okay, good deal. Real quick, first of all, I'm going to lead by saying you're my guy. You have taken the place of the three dipsticks at this time of day, and you've done a fabulous job. You and Lucas are killing it. Okay, so I'm just going to leave it at that on leading off.
Why? Wait, Scott, is there a butt after that? Are you going to hit us over the head with something afterwards?
Hey, there's always a butt.
That's
right.
There's
always a butt. There's always an ass.
The nicer
okay?
the first part is, the worse the butt
now
is.
I'm scared. What do you have, Scott?
That was the butt. The butt was me buttering you up.
Oh, okay.
All right. Now, I'm going to go with this. I agree with you. The Tampa Bay coach shouldn't have stick chained. That's completely what that was. It was like wagging your finger,
Yeah.
at the Titans. Shouldn't have done it. It was reckless. But also, your personal stance on the vaccination, in my opinion, and the way you put it out there is a little bit reckless too. And hear me say, I support you getting the vaccine. I'm good with that. You guys have to do it. You have to do what you do. But the mandates, starting with the NFL through big companies, in the personal sector, the private sector, there's just something not right about it. I don't like. You're basically manipulating people to get the vaccine. I love what Tannehill said about it. I don't think the NFL done their job by forcing people to do it. It should be a choice. It should be out there as a choice. And if they put it out there as a choice, there's probably more people that would freely get it anyway. But listen, I appreciate your show. I appreciate your opinions on things a lot of times. But the way you're putting that out there, it could be reckless because we don't have enough information because it just hasn't been out there long enough and people haven't been vaccinated long enough. So we don't know what the long-term effects could be. So it's a crapshoot. It may be fine. I hope it is. I hope I'm completely wrong. But anyway, that's my opinion. Thanks, brother.
No, you speak for a lot of people, Scott. Thank you for the call. So, and I knew as soon as I said that I would probably get some pushback on that, and that's completely fair. Here, and for those of you we may have some new listeners, we may have some people who are unfamiliar with this. It's been a long time. It hadn't been that long since I've had to do a COVID show, but it's been long enough to maybe where I have to reset my position on it. All right? And if you want to jump in, you can. 615-737-1045. We are wide open for you guys to get involved today, even though as soon as one person calls in, the phone lines light up, which always makes me happy. But so to reset what I said earlier, what Scott took issue with fairly, when Ryan Tannehill made the comments that he did about at the start of training camp, saying that he would not have gotten the vaccination unless the NFL forced his hand. But he did go forward with the vaccination process. Now, what Scott says is absolutely so. There is such a fine line. I feel this way about social media censorship. I feel this way about corporations mandating vaccines. I feel this way about a great many things that would infringe upon people's freedom and willingness to choose. But, just as Scott had a butt, I have a butt. But I appreciate those who say that they still need more information because he's right. This is all very, very new. We're just getting to the point where the FDA is approving specifically Pfizer, and so many people rightfully took issue with the vaccine because of it not being federally approved, thus holding the corporations liable. If they can operate under emergency use protocols, then the corporations, Moderna, Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson, they couldn't be held liable. I understand why people had reservations about that. In fact, I thought it was foolish the way that it took so long, if they were just going to go ahead and do it anyway, the way that it took so long for that to get to this point. Of course, I agree with that. But I also realize that there are plenty of people like Scott. I think Scott and many others are genuinely curious, are wanting to ask why. It's totally fine to ask why. You should ask why. But there is a segment that I get tired of, Scott, and for anybody who would have this opinion as well, there's a segment of the population, Scott, who is saying, well, we just need more information, but not asking questions about it, right? They're not seeking out the follow-up information. They're just doing it to be obstinate. That's the segment that I take issue with, right? You can have questions. I hope that people have questions. Hell, I have questions, all right? Even as I made the decision that I made and got the vaccination that I got, and the city of Nashville giving out free Pfizer shots, I'm like, load me up. I don't want to mess with this thing, right? I had it. I was down bad for like 4 days last August when I had it. So from that standpoint, when I said it's good that the NFL had that Tannehill felt that way about the NFL, I think that there are more people like that where Sam Darnold is getting up in front of Carolina meeting and being like, hey, I just need more information. Sam Darnold is not seeking out more information. He's not endeavoring to be an epidemiologist. Sam Darnold is just saying that to get out of the question, like that's a good excuse. 615-737-1045 is the number. We are loaded up, so I want to get some people involved over the course of today's show. Emily is in Murfreesboro. She wants to weigh in. Good morning, Emily. Emily, you're on the air.
Hey, Buck. Yeah. I totally disagree with Scott.
Okay.
I'm glad the NFL is doing what they're doing. I hope they can do more. This has turned so political. I voted for Trump twice. I'll vote for him again if he runs. But this is a health deal. This isn't about rights. This isn't about rights. This is a public health deal.
Correct.
And, I'm just so tired of these people. I'm immunocompromised, so I can't get out and mingle. I'm scared to go to a football game. My doctor has advised me against it.
Yeah.
And these people that won't get a shot for all these crazy reasons, they need to do research. I've researched. I haven't grown another leg. I haven't turned purple, and I've had 3 shots.
Yeah.
So rock on, NFL. Do all you can to get as many people vaccinated as you possibly can, because this country's got to have it, because this thing's out of control.
Emily, I appreciate so much the call and the perspective. I think that's really important for a lot of people to hear, because it turns political, and it shouldn't. That's what drives me crazy about this. It turns political, and it absolutely should not. 615-737-1045. I feel like people are going to be passionate about this today. Lucas, hold on to your butt back there. Let's go to Trent in Hendersonville, who's up next. What's up, Trent?
Hey, Buck.
Hey, buddy.
Okay, so, we live in the land of UT, where everyone seems around here to be a UT fan. So I want to give all the fans a source that they can rely on.
Please.
The University of Tennessee Medical Center released a COVID dashboard recently, within the last week or so. And I've been checking it pretty much daily. And we hear with the vaccine that it's making the virus, less deadly, and it's making the symptoms less severe.
Yes.
Well, if you just go to the University of Tennessee dashboard and look at 8/25, which was yesterday, of their 160 or some odd people that they had in the hospital in rooms, 83% of those were non-vaccinated, and 17% were fully vaccinated.
Right.
So for the people that need more information, let's look at something that's not political, and that's statistics. and let's go to a resource that people around here should trust, which is their university's medical center. And that's all I got for you, Buck.
Hey, Trent, I see, this is why I love our audience, man. They're so smart. 615-737-1045 is how you get involved. Because, Lucas, take a break if you would, because I know, well, if you want to keep taking calls, Lucas, I'll let you do your thing. But, like, you brought up this point about the University of Tennessee, not from the data, from the COVID statistics that the university offers, but from a football season standpoint, with the policy that the University of Tennessee basically chose not to enact. We told you that LSU at football games is requiring you either to be vaccinated or to show proof of a negative COVID test in at least a 72-hour window. And Lucas, when we were talking about this situation where we're talking about loaded stadiums and feeling depressed again about football season, you brought up the point about, what is the capacity at Neyland?
Touch over 104,000 people.
And people like Emily are out here just terrified in their homes. They have to be. And I guess, her situation sounds more, I don't want to say extreme, but it does sound like more extreme than average, to where she is having to do her own research. I hate it's a situation like that, to be immunocompromised and to have to pore over these medical studies and these findings and the numbers, the statistics that are coming out of your individual states and counties, the policies around wherever you are governed by. I hate that people are I don't hate that people are having to do it. I think it's important, but Emily is having to do it out of necessity for survival. And for people like her, it sounds, you can hear the frustration in her voice. She's irritated with the people that are making her life harder when it already sounds like she's going through a bit of a time. We'll continue to take your calls. We have, I think we have some lines available, but not many, because a bunch of you are passionate about this. I appreciate that. I hope we're going to have a civil conversation today. I enjoy when we have these kind of conversations because it really seems like it gets people engaged. We'll continue this coming up next. I'm Buck Reising. This is 104.5 The Zone.
The Titans and Bears end the preseason together in Nashville. Kickoff is Saturday night at 6 on your home for Titans football. 104.5 The Zone.
Is your company having a hard time finding the right
Get our lines loaded. One, if Darrington calls in and says that well, there's three things. One, if Darrington calls in and says that Ryan Tannehill is Matt Schaub. Two, if I literally utter the words LeBron James into the microphone. And three, when we're talking about COVID. 615-737-1045. The Titans are on the practice field right now. We will have updates from their media availability on this show to kind of break things up because I know topics like this can get strenuous, but right now you guys are passionate about it. And like I said, we're having a civil discussion today. You know that Ryan Tannehill is among 6 players on the COVID list for the Titans. They're dealing with, I don't know what constitutes an outbreak in the facility, but they are dealing with enough that it becomes problematic when you start seeing guys. You hate to be as cold as this is, but once you start seeing guys of more importance get affected by it, then you start, then your wheels start turning on how this thing gets involved with sports. Because as much as people want to avoid it and come to sports for the avoidance of it, it lingers in the playground too. 615-737-1045. Let's go to Steve, who's in the borough. He wants to weigh in. Good morning, Steve.
Good morning. I just had an observation and a question. When you take antibiotics, it's very important you take them all the way through, because if you don't and stop taking them when you feel better, you could create a stronger germ because you haven't completely killed it. And I'm wondering about this vaccine. If it's not completely killing the virus, could it be partly causing a stronger virus, maybe even causing the Delta variant, because that's all that's surviving after the vaccine? And I'll hang up and listen to your thoughts on that.
Hey, Steve, and here's what I'll say, because I do appreciate the question, but obviously Lucas and I are not trained medical professionals, so I don't want to give you misinformation, right? That's a big problem with all of this stuff, is there's people who are speaking confidently about this kind of stuff that have no place speaking confidently about it. To answer your question, what I know about vaccines is that it does not completely eradicate any vaccine, whether you're talking about flu vaccinations or things of this nature. It does not completely eradicate the disease, but what it does is lessen the impacts, help your body get through the difficulties that the disease would pose otherwise. But to anything else, to ask me medical questions, that's not what we're here to do today. But I do appreciate you asking, Steve, because I know plenty of people have questions about this. It's just, I don't think I'm the one who's qualified to be answering them. 615-737-1045. Let's go to Wildcat, who's up next. He wants to talk about the NFL protocols. What's up, Wildcat?
Hey, Uncle Buck, how you doing? I'm hoping you're living the dream, brother.
Man, sure as hell. Living right, feeling well.
Cool. I know time restraint and all that, so I'll try to be quick. And the reason I'm bringing this up from Star Wars, Obi-Wan Kenobi said to Luke, some people look at certain things from a certain point of view, right?
Yeah.
Everybody has, their own beliefs in America, and that's great. What I want to say is, when the vaccine came out, a lot of people considered it to be, if you get it, you won't get COVID. And that narrative is still kind of being pushed today, and most people helps you prevent from dying from it.
Hey, Wildcat, it sounds like you don't have I hate to drop you in the middle of what seemed like a good point, but your phone line stinks. So if you want to try us back. But Lucas just told me that I was making jokes about Darrington when people load up the lines to call in to fight with Darrington. I've just been told Darrington has called in. Buddy, are you in the hospital?
Yes, sir, I am.
Okay, tell us what's going on.
So I can say that I was one of those unvaccinated ones. And I was actually waiting for FDA for approval. The day that it got approved was the day that I was rushed to the emergency room because I had stopped breathing. So I just want to say you can have trial and error. People are gonna make mistakes. They have to make the decision for themselves and what they feel like is best for them. The only thing, like I said, I was just waiting for confirmation from the government itself. I feel like if the government even couldn't tell me that it was safe, then I just didn't want to put that in my body. I'm also allergic to penicillin, which is one of the number one fighting things they use for antibiotics. I'm allergic to that. I can't have that in my body. And so that's just an uphill battle that everyone's going to have, and it's going to be ins and outs. I try to keep myself protected and those around me. I wash my hands. I wear a mask. And I've been around people that were vaccinated and unvaccinated, so it's always going to be an opinion. But it is a battle. It is a fight. And once I'm clear of this, I will be getting the Pfizer vaccine. But so for those people out there, hey, make the decision on what you feel like is best for you.
Hey,
that's it, guys. I'm out of here.
No, Darrington, I appreciate the call, man. Get better soon.
Well, yeah. How you doing, Darrington?
Are you doing okay?
I'm right, man. We fighting. We fighting. I'm a fighter. I'm always gonna fight, no matter what.
Yeah, we love to see it. Hey, call us back anytime, buddy.
And before I go, just remember, LeBron James is the GOAT.
And Ryan Tannehill is Matt Schaub. Get out of here. Get better. 615-737-1045. Man, that hurts. That really breaks my heart. What? I'm glad that he called, though.
I'm glad he's well enough to call.
Well, you could tell he sounds winded.
Yeah.
Man. Because here's what I'll say before we go on with any of this, and I want, because I feel like when stuff like that happens, and that's complete happenstance. Like I don't want people to think like we planted Darrington or something like that, because that's obviously where people's minds would start to go, like that we planned for something like that to happen. Of course not, but so everybody that listens to this show, not to get super deep and super cheesy, whatever, but you in the way that I make fun of J Mart and Ramon out of love, we kid because we love, right? I make fun of the fam thing because the fam thing drives me crazy. I can't stand it. But on principle, everybody that interacts with this show, everybody that listens to this show, everybody that calls this show, everybody that loves this show, everybody that hates this show, you guys are all our extended family, for lack of a better term. Now, that I'm not going to do the fam thing.
They're going to jump on you.
I know. They should bury me. They should bury
Way
me
too
for
late.
this. But I really do feel that way. When people call in or interact with us, we do have people that call, from time to time, or people that listen but don't necessarily call. Sometimes they'll call Lucas, make a comment, say they don't want to be on air, whatever. But there is an interconnectedness to this. It's why radio is still my favorite thing out of all the stuff that I do. And I do too much, by far and away. I do too much. But radio is my favorite because you create these relationships with people like that. So anytime, and we should do something for Darrington. I don't know. I know the last time I workshopped one of these ideas on air, we had a meeting about lawyers and stuff like that. So maybe I'll save it for off air, but just, know that we feel that way about each and every one of you, no matter what your opinion is. And when one of us, goes down, we all feel it a little bit. I hate that. 615-737-1045. Casey says, don't get soft on me, Buck. I know. Damn it.
Get better, Darrington.
It's because I'm wearing long shorts today. My shorts come down to my knees. It's affecting my judgment. I can't be doing this. 615-737-1045. Let's go to Chris in Clarksville, who's been waiting patiently. What's up, Chris?
Hey, what's going on today, Buck? Can you hear me?
I sure can, buddy.
Well, first off, I just want to say, if we're part of your family, then I need a loan. Second,
you damn leeches, I swear.
The point that I wanted to bring up, I'm an ex-ER nurse, and my son just tested positive with COVID this weekend. So we do the right thing. We call the school and ask them, okay, so how are you going to go about the contact tracing? And they tell us we don't do contact tracing anymore. It's Department of Health. So I call Montgomery County Department of Health. They say it's Regional Department of Health that does it. The problem that I have right now is that people are operating on the mindset that I'm vaccinated, I'm good. But my son was vaccinated, he was wearing a mask, yet the place where it's most prevalent right now, which is his school, no one wants to contact trace, no one wants to get political and require masks, even though last year at this time when we thought it wasn't affecting kids, they had all the precautions in place. It feels like societally we're acting more in a reactionary way instead of preventative.
Oh, no, it's spot on. I think that's been the biggest failing of whether you want to. So just to bring it back into the world of sports, right? And we're all this thing clearly by just the nature of the word variant, the thing is evolving. So everything that we think we know, we probably don't know, and the situation changes. Now, I feel like the vast majority of things, whether it's the NFL, the NBA, the NHL, or if you want to talk about some larger entity, federal government, whatever, there, to a degree, all you can do is try to keep up. To a degree, all you can do is to be reactive. But like lessons that we learned over the course of the last 19 months, you would think that people would still apply those and use those safe practices and principles that helped us kind of. It's been a long time since you've used the word the phrase flatten the curve, but these ideas, the things that we found out that did work, that helped keep us safe and helped keep others safe, you would think that they would carry over. But it seems, and understandably, there is so much fatigue around this. So much. It's not an excuse. It's just the reality of the situation. Like, if you're looking for an explanation, not an excuse, but an explanation as to why people have laxed or why, schools are avoiding things like contact tracing, and I don't know that to be the case in all schools. I can't speak to that personally. I don't have children. Lucas doesn't have children. We're a couple of guys in our 20s, and that kind of stuff eludes us to a degree. So I don't want to speak on other people's real life experiences, having not had that life experience in my own right. But to this point, people, first of all, people don't want to be told what to do. And secondly, especially people don't want to be told what to do when they've already been told one thing and now the situation is pivoting. You can call it selfishness, you can call it fatigue, you can call it obstinance, call it whatever you want. It's just the reality of the situation. It's what you're working against human nature, basically. It's why it's made this thing so much more difficult. Let's go to Mike, who's in Murfreesboro. He's been waiting patiently. What's up, Mike?
Hey, man, how are you doing?
I'm great.
Hey, I just wanted to touch on this. Emily called earlier, and everything that kind of made me start to think. All these players on the Titans are being tested positive for COVID. Yet, I would go out of my way and say that most of them, if not all of them, have been fully vaccinated. It shows that whether you have the vaccine or you don't, you are still, you're still going to get COVID and spread COVID. Now I understand that, it might be less severe symptoms. So, I just want to see, if you are fully vaccinated, then shouldn't you be protected majority-wise to the severe symptoms? And even not, the death rate doesn't dip, or the survival rate doesn't dip below 99% until late 80s year old. So, I just don't get, if we have a vaccine and it's readily available to everybody and it's free, then why is this an issue if I'm not vaccinated when everybody is able to be vaccinated? That's one thing that I kind of, don't understand. So thanks. I'll hang up.
I know Mike speaks for a lot of people. I think the biggest, and I don't know Mike's specific situation. This is case by case, right? You cannot, whether it's age demographics, whether it's religious beliefs, because there are exceptions for those as well. Of course, you cannot cast a widespread net over the entirety of the population and say, hey, this makes sense for one person, it should make sense for all of you. It's not necessarily the case. It's just the vast majority of people who do not have those religious beliefs or pre-existing conditions that would be further exacerbated by vaccination, as we have seen in some cases. There are. Everybody has to make their own decision, of course. But I think the biggest issue, Mike, that people are taking with someone who chooses not to get vaccinated when the vaccine does help. Look at Mike Vrabel, right? Mike Vrabel is vaccinated. Look at Frank Reich. Frank Reich was vaccinated. Both coaches tested positive for COVID-19. Both have expressed that they did not deal with symptoms. I take that to mean that the vaccination had its effect because the symptoms were not present or not debilitating or not as bad as they could have been for two men in their age demographic. Of course, if you're older, if you have pre-existing conditions, we know that this is something that can be more deadly to you. But from those two examples and many more others, I take that to mean whether it's Tannehill, whether it's Harold Landry, whether it's Jeff Swaim, I take that to mean that that's working. that means it's working. Now, Mike, to the people who would push back on those who aren't vaccinated, I guess people just don't understand if you are able to and if you do not fit the criteria of religious exemption or health issues that would be further exacerbated by vaccines potentially. If you don't have those issues, I think that's where people are taking. Now, to do what Bruce Arians did, we talked about this with Bruce Arians, sick shaming or vax shaming is not the right thing to do. But when Montez Sweat gets up in front of a crowd full of media people or on a Zoom full of media people and says, I'm not getting the vaccine because I haven't had COVID yet, that's just a dumb person who doesn't know what a vaccine is. I'm not vax shaming Montez Sweat. I'm saying that he's a bit of an idiot and he doesn't know what he's talking about. There's a clear definition between those two things. 615-737-1045. Man, Rick in Bowling Green has been hanging on for a minute. I want to get to Rick. What's up, Rick?
Thanks, Buck, for taking my call. And great show. I wanted to step in. I'm one who had COVID very badly. In fact, I was on oxygen for 13 days in a hospital. I'm older. I'm in my 60s. But I just want people to know is, not only, it is everybody's choice for sure, but just think that choice may be killing somebody else because I was wearing a mask, staying my 6 feet away from everyone, and I still got it. So just because you don't want to take it doesn't mean you're not going to kill somebody else. So when I was in grade school, we all lined up when we was in the second and third grade, and, the health department come and gave us vaccinations for all kinds of different things. So I know Scott said, well, there's not enough information for the vaccine. Well, what we do know in the short term is people are dying. And I just want people to know that it is your decision, but just think about the other person as well, not only yourself. And that's what I got, Buck. You got a great show, and thanks for taking my call.
Hey, Rick, thanks so much for sharing your standpoint. I want to make sure that we get as many people heard today because there's people that can benefit from hearing Rick and Emily and their standpoints because maybe they haven't had that kind of conversation with somebody in their lives, right? And maybe, I think there's an unfortunate part of this where some people just don't care, right? Where it's not, I don't work in a hospital. I don't care. I don't have, my grandparents are already passed on or something like that. My parents aren't elderly. I don't care. I think there's a degree of that you're always going to be running up against, and that's unfortunate. But I do think it's important for people to hear these perspectives from as many different ways as possible. We're talking about this, by the way, I feel like I haven't reset in a minute. We're talking about this today, by the way, because the NFL is experiencing league-wide, not just here in Tennessee, because I saw the Colts put a handful of guys on the COVID list. You've seen Cam Newton. Mike Giardi of the NFL Network is going to join us later in the show to talk about what's going on there in New England, and we'll talk about quarterback battles as well. But, given the news of the day is the fact that Ryan Tannehill and 5 other Titans players, plus the head coach, and according to Adam Schefter, another coach who has not been disclosed, have all been placed into the protocol today. This is why we're having that conversation. It's not that we're just stirring things up. It's not that we're just stirring things up or getting people to call in about COVID. Of course, I want to make sure that we reset these themes for the audience to understand why we're having this conversation. Now, it is of note today, because Lucas was asking me, the Titans are currently practicing right now. They're probably about to wrap up. And we would, in a normal circumstance, carry their media availability. But, Lucas, what I'm being told is that a coach is not speaking today. So we have already heard from Shane Bowen. Mike Vrabel will speak at 1:30 via Zoom. Safe to assume that he has not been able to clear his. Yeah, I know. And Lucas just said in my ear that it is Kevin Byard. Kevin Byard at the podium is all well and good, but based on the news of the day, do we want to go to Kevin Byard? I guess that's kind of my question because I want to hear from a coach on the news of the day. The news of the day is that there are 6 players and, according to Adam Schefter, 2 coaches, including Mike Vrabel, that are dealing with the virus. And I don't think that's necessarily something that Kevin Byard is going to be able to expand our conversation about. You know what I'm saying? 615-737-1045. Listen, you guys have loaded up the lines. We're trying to get to you to as many of you as possible. We appreciate your patience. We're going to get to more phone calls coming up next. I'm Buck Reising. This is 104.5 The Zone.
3, the pro way. Taking you inside the transition from retired athlete to business. Every Monday morning at 8 with Tennessee football legends Joey Kent and Kevin Dyson. 3, the pro way. Download now at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcasts.
Been an eventful show today. There's a lot of stuff going on. The Titans have concluded practice. Some of them are speaking to the media now. We're gonna record Kevin Byers' press conference to see if he says anything relevant to the situation. But in the interest of keeping you guys, making sure that we get your guys' voices heard, we wanted to stay with the course of conversation that we've been having. If you're just now joining us, we are going to make fun of the Jacksonville Jags at some point. I promise. I want to laugh. You guys want to laugh. I know not everybody wants to do a full COVID show today. Also, Mike Giardi of the NFL Network is going to join us later in the noon hour, 12:20, so stick around. But we continue the conversation about COVID and sports right now and the impact of the NFL's protocols, understanding that 6 total Titans players, including Ryan Tannehill, the starting quarterback, have been placed on the COVID-19 reserve list. Mike Vrabel and, according to Adam Schefter, 1 other coach have been diagnosed as positive. It is unclear right now who the second coach is. I don't want to, and here's what I don't want to do. All right, I don't want to get reckless, but it is fair to note, I am not saying that this is the other coach, but it is fair to note that Craig Aukerman, who is the special teams coach and who has been running things or had been running things in the absence of Mike Vrabel, this is the second day that he has not been spotted out on the practice field. That could mean something. It could mean nothing at all. I don't want to recklessly speculate. It's just me making an observation and telling you what the latest reporting is. Back to the phones. 615-737-1045. Andrew has been waiting for an eternity. I want to make sure we get to Andrew in Clarksville. What's up, Andrew?
Hey, what's going on?
How we living, buddy?
I'm about to drive your callers crazy. I'm an educated and successful season ticket member that's not getting the vaccine.
Okay.
It's not a live virus, so therefore I feel like the vaccine didn't work. That's why vaccines worked against smallpox, measles, mumps. And I'm 27 years old and healthy, so why would I take a vaccine? Everyone dying in the hospital from it, 95% of them have 4 comorbidity factors. I'm not fat. I don't have high blood pressure. I don't have a bad heart. So why should I just shut up and take the vaccine?
Well, I don't think anybody's trying to shut you up and make you take the vaccine, Andrew. I think there's just a lot of people who are asking, people like you who feel the way like you do, because I think you speak for a lot of people. And certainly, like you and me are basically the same age. I'm 28. I just turned 28 in July. So a lot of my friends feel that exact same way. I think it's more about the consideration of others than it is about, somebody telling you basically shut up and dribble.
And my mom's vaccinated, as she should be. But, we're young and healthy. You had COVID. You got over it okay. I'm hoping nothing bad would happen, but I feel that I would probably have the same reaction to it as you.
Well, listen, like I said, we appreciate everybody's perspective here, and I'm sure there's going to be people who are passionate about that, but we're having a civil discussion, and I'm glad that Andrew brought up his perspective from a civil standpoint. 615-737-1045. Let's go to Adam in Nashville, who wants to weigh in. He's been waiting as well. What's up, Adam?
Hey, thanks for taking my call. I'm taking a deep breath after that caller.
Thank you.
So, first of all, thank you for purporting and stating earlier that vaccine mandates are good, right? Everybody should be able to take that stance. Anybody saying otherwise is simply uninformed and doesn't know what they're talking about. I'm going to try to go quick and be civil, but I'm sorry, but this infuriates me. So, first of all, there was a caller earlier that stated that he doesn't trust the vaccine because he was comparing vaccines to, I believe, antibiotics that said the vaccine could be spouting a variant like the Delta.
That's correct.
So antibiotics were completely different than vaccines. Antibiotics are a poison for bacteria. It's like if you'd have poison and put it on an anthill. If 2 of the ants survive from the poison, it's because the poison didn't work on them. When they have babies, those babies also aren't affected by the poison. That's why you get superbugs. Vaccines are totally different. They work on viruses, and they keep the virus from being able to replicate in your body. The only reason viruses mutate is because when they get the opportunity to replicate. So they work completely differently. You cannot get variants from vaccines. Second of all, there was a caller earlier that stated there was 2 reasons that he stated that there shouldn't be mandates. I apply anybody to put forth mandates. It's just any business whatsoever. So his 2 reasons were, if I remember correctly, it was 1, he didn't trust the research on the vaccine because they're new, and 2, basically, and I'm paraphrasing here, but we shouldn't tell people what to do because if we don't tell people what to do, it's more likely that they'll do the right thing. to the first point, anyone saying that this vaccine has not been thoroughly researched simply doesn't know what they're talking about. This vaccine and these types of vaccines have been studied for over 20 years. And there's a good reason. The previous caller just said something about the reason live viruses and this thing isn't working. He has no idea what he's talking about. The reason why these mRNA viruses work is because you can't give someone who's immunocompromised a live attenuated or basically less lethal virus, because it's much more likely that they'll actually get sick. So the reason these work is because it just introduces the little bits of the virus that actually make you sick without it being a live virus. So your body recognizes it. That's why it works. All right. So first of all, anybody saying it hasn't been researched, please do more research, because you don't know what you're talking about.
Well, and I think this
lastly,
is. Oh, I'm sorry, Adam. I don't mean to cut you off.
Yeah. But lastly is this idea of people not wanting to be mandated to do something. Okay. We've been doing that for 6-7 months now, and it hasn't worked. Let's be clear. The only reason we're in this situation right now with this Delta variant is because people didn't get vaccinated like they were supposed to. Period. End of sentence. If we would have had 85% vaccination, we would not be having these conversations right now. We'd all be able to be going to football games and not have to worry about getting maxed up. We wouldn't have to worry about sending our kids to do this. And the idea that someone is going to say, don't do this because you're telling me I have to do it. I hear that argument a lot. And I hear that argument by my 7-year-old son when he doesn't want to do something.
Yeah.
Anybody making that argument simply doesn't care about anybody but themselves. That previous call that you just said, oh, I don't care, blah, blah, blah. He can get it, be asymptomatic, and kill somebody. It's happened to me. So it's absolutely, and I appreciate you just working both sides, but that's absolutely irresponsible, and it's the reason we're in this situation to begin with. And that's all I have to say.
Hey, Adam. Hey, wait, is Adam still there, Lucas? It sounded like he went. Adam, you still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, what can because I think there's so many that's all publicly available information is my largest irritation with this. Because when people tell me that they want to do more research for themselves, I completely respect that standpoint, and I want people to ask more questions, to be more inquisitive. My irritation is that the people who claim to want more information aren't actually seeking out the information. It's just flat out obstinance. And I think that's where I differ, because I don't think you meant to imply anything by saying that I'm kind of working both sides here. I'm just trying to have a civil discourse to make sure.
Oh, no, I didn't mean that at all.
No,
I
understand.
think you've been walking the line well.
Well, and because it's not my place, you know what I'm saying? I want to make sure, though, that people, because I don't think I benefit from shouting at anybody. You know what I'm saying?
No, exactly right. You let us handle that.
Thanks for the call, Adam. 615-737-1045. All right, you guys are still, man, everybody is fired the hell up. We are going to reset this conversation. We're going to come back. We're going to take a whole mess of calls. Mike Giardi's going to be here, and we will inform you what is going on with the Jacksonville Jags, and then we will all, every one of us, no matter what side of this discussion you're on, we're all going to laugh at the Jacksonville Jags together. Stick around. It's 104.5 The Zone.
Getting you geared up for another Titans season.
Touchdown, Titans!
On your home for Titans football and flagship for Titans radio. 104.5 The Zone.
you guys involved with the proceedings today. You have kept it interesting. I don't know if you've kept it light, but it's been a lot of talk today and a lot of involvement from the audience. If you wish to further involve yourselves, 615-737-1045, 737-1045. The lines are loaded, and we are going to continue to take some calls here in just a second. But here's what we're going to do first and foremost. Mike Giardi of the NFL Network is going to be here coming up next. We'll talk to him about the quarterback battles happening around the league. He's based out of New England, so obviously he's monitoring not just that quarterback battle, but the COVID situation that does not necessarily mirror what's happening in Tennessee, but that we're seeing start to pop up and affect different training camps and different teams across the league right now. The Titans, if you missed any of the conversation earlier, 6 players currently on the COVID list, one of them being Ryan Tannehill. And John Robinson, the Titans general manager, held an impromptu press conference. So we wanted to run back those comments for you here in their entirety because I think that it's important that you hear them from the Titans GM himself.
Our medical team has done an outstanding job with talking with the league and the players, coaches. Coach Vrabel has had minimal symptoms. It's usually a day or two, and then they're over and they feel great. And that's really what the main reason was: A, to update you on the roster, and B, to continue to urge vaccination. I've seen it firsthand with the guys. Coach Vrabel can speak to this. It's a couple days, and then they feel fine. We've had 2 people that I know personally that have lost loved ones over the last couple days to COVID from symptoms and complications, and it's a life-saving vaccine. And that's where I'm at. We're probably 97 to 98% vaxxed or have antibodies, and continue to push forward with that. So just wanted to make sure you guys were up to date on where we were at, and happy to take a handful of questions.
We know Bruce Arians was talking the other day about rules that he would implement on the road as opposed to just the NFL rules. Have you guys given consideration to doing that kind of thing as well?
I mean, that's something we'd have to talk to the league about. I mean, those protocols were negotiated between the NFLPA and the NFL. So, I don't know where that lies. Whatever's negotiated between the players' union and the NFL is the rules that we try to follow.
Nice.
Ryan, in that course of what you're talking about with the symptoms, how's he?
Feeling fine, feeling okay.
John, I guess as far as Ryan's concerned, getting close to the season, hopeful that he's back and able to kind of get himself geared up when the time comes.
Yeah, whenever that window passes, Jim, that he can get back, but he'll be engaged in the meetings. He'll be ready to go. He's a pro. He's played in this league for a long time. We got the utmost confidence in him and his ability to prepare to come out and help this football team.
Potentially in the same boat that Mike is in, just needing 2 consecutive negative tests.
I think that's it. Yeah, that's it, Terry. There's a complicated mathematical formula where they look at the percentage of virus that you may or may not have, or if you're a close contact, where that falls, how many days. Everything's a little bit different depending upon what bucket you land in. But yes.
Will have negative?
You have to ask Mike on that one.
John, considering last year's outbreak, there's been a lot of criticism saying, what's the challenge of trying to stay safe and not testing positive with the levels of the outbreaks here, and also last week in Florida where you spent over 4 days? Yeah,
I think we see it in our community, not just within a football team. It's my sister's a school teacher back in Union City. And she said it's rampant in their school, and they're doing everything they can to we see it in our community. I think everybody's doing everything they can to try to help it. And the biggest thing is the vaccination. because it does save lives. For us personally, we're masking in the building. We're taking extra precautions, urging guys to be socially distant. We've been meeting in the bubble, pushing guys to the bubble to sit during some dead time because it creates more space. We've gone above and beyond, just like we did last year, to try to get through this thing, and we will.
As you said, you've taken a lot of precautions. Is there anything that you find yourself saying, "I wish we had done this"? Or
I don't think so, John. It's like it's the whole dinner thing. I went to dinner when I was in Tampa. Did any of you guys go out to dinner when you were in Tampa?
Yeah.
Probably did. That's where we're at. And I felt safer because I was vaccinated. I felt like I could go eat a meal, and because of what I have seen and the science that's behind the vaccine, that if you do contract it and you're vaccinated, it looks like the science has shown that you're sick for a day or two, and then you're going to get through that. So there's comfort in going out to dinner and trying to get back to some degree of normalcy, which we all want to do, and I know that the vaccine helps that.
There are teams that are 100% vaccinated. I would imagine, obviously, you guys aren't. But do you have a finger on what percentage you guys are at?
Yeah, I think we're 97, close to 97, 98 that either have antibodies. We're doing antibody tests. There's a lot of stuff that we're doing, with A, vaccination and B, testing for antibodies. And I think, we're right around between 97 and 98 last that I looked at it.
John, would a guy being unvaccinated weigh your decision of bringing him in here?
I think bringing him in here, you're just going to have to be mindful of that ramp-up period, Terry. You got to bring them in, and they've got to kind of sit, and they've got to quarantine, and it's the testing. It's whatever those policies that are put in place, and it's really contingent upon the immediacy that you need the player. If you need him right away, well, then you're going to have to get somebody that's ready to roll. If it's a really good player, then you're going to find a way to kind of craft it to get him in at some point. Just know you're going to have to go through those protocols in order to take a look at him.
Concerns at all about Saturday's preseason game at this point?
No.
Does Ryan likely not playing in this game affect you think what might be playing?
That's probably a my question, Paul. But I think that, again, we're going to put guys out there. There's still we've got some tough decisions heading into the weekend, and I'm excited for the football team. I'm excited the way that our guys have played in the two previous games. I was excited about the practice that we had on Tuesday. I thought there was a lot of speed, there was a lot of juice, and guys are fighting and scrapping every single day to stick around here. And I think we've got a competitive roster. Anxious to watch these guys play on Saturday night. Thank you, guys. Appreciate you.
So that's General Manager John Robinson talking about the latest update on the Titans and COVID-19. It is near impossible to find flaw in that logic or to ask him, hey, if you'd have done anything different, or would you have done anything different if you had the opportunity to go back? And I just don't know how one does that kind of analysis. What we're going to do coming up next is Mike Giardi of the NFL Network is going to get involved. Well, I know because a lot of people have been waiting patiently. If you want to react to anything that you just heard John Robinson say, again, 6 players, Ryan Tannehill included, on the COVID-19 list. It sounds from John's comments like he has tested positive based on the way that he was talking about the return to the building protocol, basically that he needs 2 negative tests to be able to, in a 48-hour period, like Mike Vrabel, who has not been able to clear that protocol. We'll meet with Mike Vrabel at 1:30 on Zoom today. I'm sure Blaine and Mickey will carry that. Let's go to Wildcat, it's damn near an hour. Wildcat's been on hold, so I'll go ahead and get Wildcat in. What's up, buddy?
Hey, can you hear me now, man?
I sure can.
I have 4 bars.
You got
it. Hey, I heard the other callers, so I kind of probably feel stupid just being on now, just talking about it. But what I was just saying is that, people who take the vaccine, it's supposed to just help you save your life. It's not supposed to prevent you from getting COVID, obviously.
Yeah.
My point I was trying to make is that why do you take the vaccine? Well, when the vaccine first came out, obviously elderly people had to take it because they're more prone to die from COVID and all that. And other reasons is if you have diabetes, you have heart problems, you have different types of symptoms, obesity, stuff like that. And the last time I checked, I don't see any of the NFL players having that. They're mostly at a young age, and they are healthy. I mean, obviously they're athletes. So I just want to have an understanding. You're a pretty understanding guy of everything and all that, and that's why I like to call you Uncle Buck. You give a lot of good information, and you're a very understanding guy. What is the NFL trying to do? Are they trying to push a woke narrative that you have to take it, or whatever?
No, Wildcat.
Really
the NFL is trying to save their bottom line. This is not about morality. This is not about health and safety. This is about, hey, if you mess with our dollars, mother bleepers, we will come down on your head. If the NFL cared about health and safety, there wouldn't be football. We'll get into this more on the other side. We're going to make fun of Urban Meyer. Mike Giardi of the NFL Network is going to be here. Your calls as well. I'm Buck Reising. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Do I have everybody's attention now?
Coming up tomorrow morning.
If you missed our conversation with Vols head coach Josh Heupel, check out the podcast anywhere you get your audio.
Fam, we asked him about QB1, but he alluded to pressure in the pocket.
Well said, Mom. Friday, we'll be joined by your favorite hate listen, Jeff Schwartz.
Plus, we'll talk to the bot, Mike Keefe, and our favorite weekend news and sports anchor, Emily Proud.
Friday also means Celebrity Playlist Friday. This week, the Hall of Famer, Teresa Walker.
J. Mart and Ramon, tomorrow morning from 6 to 10 a.m. on 104.5 The Zone.
basically what the last 2.5 hours have been. Maybe I shouldn't admit that publicly, but I had no idea. And we walked into the green room and J. Mart Ramon ends at 9:55. We end up in here about 10:01, maybe 10:02 if they're running a little late. Binky Johnson's got a little extra motivation he's got to put on the people on Wednesdays. So Lucas and I are talking about this, talking about the show before we walk in here, as is the custom.
But today's Thursday.
I know, but I was talking about
yesterday. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Sorry, proceed.
Thank you for helping me do the show. I appreciate that. You have had precious few opportunities to talk today, and now you've wasted it. You've wasted it that way. Brilliant. Brilliant work by you. Yes, I know it. Well, actually, it's a fair question to ask me during football season. What day is it? Because there's a good chance I won't know a lot of times. But Ryan Tannehill goes on the COVID list like 5 minutes before we walk in the studio, and I'm just cursing, shaking a fist at the name of J. Mart Ramon, because all they have to do is tell people that Ryan Tannehill is on the COVID list and then walk out. They roll the grenade out there and then they leave, and then it's mine to deal with. That's what we've done today. Mike Giardi of the NFL Network will be here in about 7 minutes, and we'll talk actual football with Mike. But based off of John Robinson's comments that we played for you in the last segment, and of course Ryan Tannehill being one of 7 players that is on the COVID-19 reserve list, 2 coaches according to Adam Schefter, including head coach Mike Vrabel. It is unclear who the second coach is presently, but this has again brought up the conversation about vaccinations in sports and the NFL not mandating, but making life hard as hell on you if you don't get the vaccination. Ryan Tannehill being one of those who expressed his beliefs, rightfully so, in his opinion, that he wouldn't have gotten the vaccine if the NFL hadn't have forced his hand. But he made the correct decision in doing it, because that not doing it creates a Cam Newton-like situation where you're removed from your team for 5 days at minimum as they try and work you back into the protocol. It's a competitive disadvantage not to get vaccinated. And Ryan Tannehill, I thought, showed tremendous leadership in going against what his initial beliefs were for the betterment of the team. That was a good lesson that I think a lot of NFL players learned from and have learned from over the course of this thing. 615-737-1045. Ethan is in Russellville. He's been waiting patiently. Hello. I was going to say good morning, Ethan, but we're well into the afternoon. It's been a whirlwind of the day. What's up?
Yeah, no, I get it completely. So I want to preface what I got to say with I'm an idiot.
No, good.
So let's not get too carried away and nobody yell at me.
Respect.
But I'm just dumb. So I've heard a lot of folks that on both sides of this thing, and I'm very confused. So the vaccine doesn't keep me from spreading it, and it doesn't keep me from getting it. It just keeps me from having bad symptoms and or dying, which is a bonus. Don't get me wrong.
Sure.
But
big bonus, not dying.
Huge bonus. Like, it's massive. It can't be understated.
Yeah.
But the players that don't want to get vaccinated, and myself who don't want to get vaccinated, I don't understand. There's other people that get on here and say you're killing your neighbor by not getting vaccinated. It sounds like I would just be hurting myself, and I'm confused as to where all these people came that care so much about me.
You're questioning your fellow man's care for you. Is that what you're saying?
Just it came out of nowhere. But I'm fat, and no one told me to eat an apple.
Yeah.
Or no one's ever told me to take a jog. But everybody's worried about me catching bad symptoms from COVID.
Hey, Ethan, because I care about you, I'm gonna say go take a jog, go eat an apple, and get the vaccine if you feel like it. If you're about the not dying bonus. But I appreciate the call, buddy. Thank you.
All right, take care.
615-737-1045. And that, Ethan, I promise you, I care about you. The rest of these frauds, they're lying to you, but I care about you. That made me laugh. I mean, listen, Ethan, and I forget who our season ticket holder, apologies, there's been a lot of callers today, so if I don't remember you all by name, you will have to forgive me from that standpoint, but there are a lot of people who just aren't going to do it because they don't want to do it, and they're going to be skeptical because they are either skeptical in nature or there are a million different reasons out there, and I'm probably, maybe we have had an intelligent conversation today in a way that kind of expands the way that people think, like Ethan. But and maybe not. Maybe there is no convincing certain people. I know how I'm not going to make a difference doing the radio show the way that we've done it today. I'm not going to make a difference by screaming at people. I'm not going to make a difference by vax shaming people. I'm not going to make a difference by sick shaming people. I have been doing this too long, 19 months now, of COVID shows to know what makes a difference and what doesn't make a difference. So, Ethan, if you choose to be skeptical and that is your choice, I can do nothing but say, okay, best of luck to you, and I hope for your sake that you eat an apple, you take a jog, and you don't get sick. That's all I can do. 615-737-1045. William is in Las Vegas. William, I hope that it's probably it's early in the morning there at this point, so you're probably not blacked out drunk yet, are you?
No, I'm already I got sobered up. I'm already good to go.
Very good. How are you?
Good. I just want to say that I'm vaxxed, and I'm not anti-vaxxed. I'm just anti people in charge, leaders, who's in charge of it. And on that issue right there, I just wanted to mention last year, 2020 NFL season made it through without very little knowledge of COVID, and nobody was vaxxed. But I have a sick feeling with the people in charge that this season is really going to be screwed up with the new policies and everything coming up.
Well, and William, I listen, because I started this show off. Thank you for the call, 615-737-1045. Mike Giardi of the NFL Network will be here in about 2 minutes, so we're trying to take it everybody who takes the time to call in, but we do have to be discerning and we do have to keep the show on the rails. What I will say to you is the season is at risk regardless. Now, why the NFL? So here's what the decision makers did, because what William expressed there is that he has a problem with authority in all ways, shapes, or forms. You and Taylor Lewan have that in common, apparently, based on the last press conference that he gave. With this situation, the NFL season, as is the college football season, at risk again of being thoroughly mutated by the virus, by the protocols that have been put in place to prevent the virus, because the virus exists, and the NFL, first and foremost, here's what I'll say. I'm sure there are some people in the league office that care about the players. I'm sure there are some people in the league office that care about the coaches. I'm sure there are some people in the league office that have a shred of morality and humanity to them. But I'm saying to you that, like every other big business in America, more often than not, they do not. And they are concerned with how you could potentially affect their bottom line. So the things that they have put into place are there to protect the dollars. The NFL would, if all things are right or as close to right as humanly possible, they would like stadiums to be at 100% capacity. If they feel that they cannot get stadiums to 100% capacity without mandating vaccinations, and as the Oakland Raiders, or the rather Las Vegas Raiders, have already done, and are saying, you can get shot on site, in the words of an LA ABC affiliate that phrased it wrongly. You can get the shot on site, not get shot on site. They are going to take those steps if it means protecting their dollars. But more than anything, this is not about care for you. This is not about concern for you. It's not about concern for the players, the coaches. It's about protecting the bottom line, as it is in all things when it comes to big business. With that, we welcome in our buddy Mike Giardi of the NFL Network. Hello, Michael. How are we?
Buck, I hear you just want to talk about more COVID-19 stuff for this segment.
What do you think my day's been like, Giardi? Yeah, just imagine and listen, I think this has been one of our better shows, but just imagine what my day has been like today.
I'm okay with not participating in that. If you want to go in any direction other than that, let's do that.
Mike Giardi of the NFL Network here with us on 104.5 The Zone. So you are based out of New England. There's obviously quarterback competition there, also dealing with a COVID situation there. Cam Newton having worked his way back from a COVID situation that may see him put him behind the eight ball for the starting job. What is the most interesting quarterback competition in the league right now to you?
I think this is the most interesting one, and it's not just because I've been on it from day one. I just think it's sort of the competition that I think people didn't want to acknowledge at first, and then now the realization over the last 2.5 weeks or so that the Mac has been the better quarterback. Not by a long shot, but he's been the better quarterback. But yet, when Cam returned today, who got the first team reps to start? It was Cam. Who got the first team reps to the 7-on-7s? It was Cam. So, is Bill Belichick being stubborn? Do they have a longer view here that they're taking with Mac, and not worried about whether he's starting on opening day, but maybe making sure that physically he's ready to start and hold up in, say, December and January?
Well, and that's why it's so fascinating. So from that standpoint, what has been the relationship with Bill Belichick and Cam Newton? Because he clearly favors him, even as that sounds like he and that staff were very, very frustrated by the situation that Cam unknowingly or knowingly put himself in, and his decision not to get vaccinated as well.
Yeah, I mean, there was a frustration there. I mean, they generally don't like players leaving during training camp to begin with, and then to not only leave, but then to have the quote-unquote misunderstanding and then be forced to miss 5 days in the facility and 3 practices, including the first of 2 joint practices with the Giants. That's not great. But Bill is, as he's basically done since Cam got here, Bill has taken every chance he's gotten to, defend or support Cam. I think there's an appreciation for Cam, signing as late as he did last year and being surrounded by what he was surrounded with last year for being the good soldier and sort of taking a lot of that blame on. But at some point the quarterback has to be able to throw the ball and do it effectively and efficiently. And, I think you can see in watching these practices that's still, that's never been his strong suit, and I don't think it's ever going to be. So that's where Mac can gain some traction.
So I do a podcast every. This is not intended to plug in the middle of Giardi's segment. I'm just saying.
No, it clearly was, but go ahead.
I do a podcast every week with Greg Cosell from NFL Films, right? And we're talking about this Fields and Dalton situation and why Andy Dalton is not a player that you can just put into a game and expect to make plays. He's like many quarterbacks, a system quarterback, a quarterback that thrives on rhythm, and he has to play all 4 quarters to be able to reach peak effectiveness, whatever that looks like for Dalton. So with New England, I'm looking at this situation and not being physically there, Mike, is there a possibility that they could both, Mac Jones and Cam Newton, see some kind of role within the offense throughout the course of the regular season, or are they looking for one dude definitively, that's our starter?
Well, when you listen to the offensive coordinator, Josh McDaniels, he claims it's something that he hasn't considered. And, of course, he's never had to because for 20 years he had, better part of 20 years, he had Tom Brady as his quarterback. Bill Belichick, though, the other day didn't really necessarily shoot it down. I wonder if there's a little bit of a conversation about that. I think when I look at it, though, the thing that makes the most sense there would be to have Mac as your starter and then maybe Cam as your red zone quarterback. And I don't know whether – well, look, based on his public comments, Cam does not see himself as that kind of player just yet, that guy that shouldn't be starting and shouldn't get all the snaps. So, I guess if it came to that, there's going to have to be a conversation as to whether, Cam would actually want to do that, or would he want to be said, all right, buddy, thanks for everything, but, go find yourself another job because you feel like you're one of the best in the league, one of the 32, and we can't promise you that here anymore.
Oh, and people are treating him like that after one half of good preseason football against the Eagles where nobody got within, 5 feet of him, basically.
Yeah, that look, it's, again, this is where, having been there every day, like, you should see my mentions on Twitter.
Yeah.
Not that they're not always a dumpster fire because it's Twitter, but, like, I posted a picture today of Cam throwing a pass. It was an incomplete pass. It was in warm-ups. We were allowed to shoot, like, 5 minutes of practice. And that was the only piece of video I took today. So there's the indication that Cam was there. I didn't even see that it was incomplete. I just had Cam in the frame. And people are like, oh, you're biased. I'm like, let me just explain this to people. I don't care who's the quarterback. You could be the quarterback, Buck. If you're good and they win, that's good for Mike Giardi. So I don't really care whether it's Cam, it's Mac, it's Brian Hoyer, it's Joe Schmedlap from down the street. Whoever it is, just be good because that's good for business.
We've had a lot of conversations about selfishness today, Giardi. It seems you are emblematic of that.
Well, in this case,
dodge that bullet, Mike. Mike Giardi of the NFL Network here with us on 104.5 The Zone. All right, it's the final week of the preseason. There has been much made about preseason football. I do, like I said, this podcast with Greg every week where he tells me, no, you idiot, this means absolutely nothing other than what we're watching from the players from a technique standpoint and how they implement it in as close to a real-life situation as humanly possible. What is the – I'm putting you on the spot, so I'm going to stall because I'm a professional, give you a minute to think about this. What is the biggest trope that you have seen coming out of this preseason that Mike Giardi is looking at as an informed NFL insider for the NFL Network and saying, no, all of you idiots are seeing this incorrectly. None of this matters. It's just the preseason.
That's a good one.
That's not what you're supposed to say because I've already bought
I
you the
know,
time. Right?
I know you're trying to give me a thing, but like there are a lot of things that sort of jump out, and you just say like,
pick one.
That's not it. I got nothing. How about that? I got nothing. I got absolutely nothing. On the spot, I got nothing.
What the hell
if you'd
is
given me a
this?
little heads up on this, like 10 minutes, I could have had an answer for you. But right now, in the spot, my mind is blank.
You do live television. You need more than the 30 seconds I just bought you? How the hell does that work?
Well, first of all, it took me a little while to figure out what word you were using there, like trope, troop. What's he going with there? Like, my brain didn't process that either. So.
All right, very good. Get the hell out of here.
See, thank you. I just gave you great entertainment. That is a great clip. You can use that the next time I'm on. Giardi's an idiot, and it's perfect.
That's what I'm going to do.
I fit the bill.
What I will say to you is I very much needed that laugh after today's show. So thank you for providing some kind of levity.
So now I'm here for information, but mostly for comic relief.
That's basic. Listen, that's why we have you and Rossini. This is basically a rotating cast of characters at this point. Get the hell out of here. Thank you, buddy.
All right, man. Later.
Mike Giardi of the NFL Network. What kind of answer? He did what you do to me. Am I bad at asking those kind of questions?
Yeah, that was a productive conversation.
That's what I'm saying. Like, what just happened the last 2 minutes of the radio show? I bring on the NFL Insider, and he gave us good insight, and then I ask him one question that's outside of the scope of what he has written in his legal pad today, and he just completely short circuits.
I don't know.
I got nothing. How about that? He hit me with the oldest of sports radio cliches. How about that? He might as well have just told me to sit on it. We'll come back and wrap up the show. Well, since we have some time here, let's go to Bam in Nashville, who's been waiting patiently. What's up, Bam? Bam, you're on the air.
20 minutes.
Oh, good. Bam's having. Bam, he just lost the privilege. Can nobody deliver today? Is it just going to have to be us? Let's go. All right. Super Serbian. Let's see if we can't finish strong here. Are you aware that you're on the air, unlike Bam?
Yeah, buddy.
Love to see it. What's up?
Hey, buddy. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to speak on this.
Of course.
Hey, I honestly wasn't going to chime in, but after hearing that guy from Russellville, I think it was Ethan or so, I just thought I'd just give a call. I appreciate you bringing this up today. I just don't think it's the right forum, and this is not really by any means a critique of you.
Sure.
I just feel like, if we bring something that's so divisive, and it requires sort of an input from people that are in the know, we should probably conduct that in such way. And let me just go back to the guy from Russellville. He pretty much said, like, hey, I didn't get it because, hey, what's the point? If I get it, I'm going to get sick. If I don't get it, I'm going to get sick. So why get it?
Yeah.
But that's not true, because if you do get the vaccine, we're going into 90% of you won't get it.
Yeah. No, I listen, and it's a conflict that I have, and I appreciate the call. Because what he's talking about is our conversation from earlier about the NFL, about vaccinations, about COVID. Tannehill being on the COVID list along with 6 other Titans players and 2 coaches reportedly, Mike Vrabel being one of them. And, of course, they'll have that press conference live on Blaine and Mickey at 1:30 today, so make sure you're listening. It is a conflict every time I have, because I'm not an educated medical professional. In fact, I told Lucas during a commercial break, I'm like, we should have a damn doctor on this show, because I know that was something that was being done on a regular basis when there were no sports and we were all looking for some kind of update, some kind of informed opinion. Maybe we can reach out to somebody, and again, I'm putting Lucas on the spot, but maybe we can reach out to somebody from Vandy and see if we can't get some kind of medical expertise on this, because you're right. I'm not qualified to be having a nuanced discussion about vaccinations. All I can do is run it through my prism as somebody who believes myself to be informed on all of these things going on and is here really to direct traffic. Now, what I don't want to do is shout anybody down. More than anything, even as I know people are super passionate about this. I feel I accomplish nothing by taking a call, disagreeing with an opinion, and then burying somebody for it. That's basically been the thesis of today's show. But what is always the thesis, or the thesis statement of every show that we do, maybe that's not too big of a phrase or a word for Mike Giardi, are the polls. It's a staple. We do them next.
Friday night, it's Brentwood Academy at CPA in the 104.5 The Zone Football Friday Night Game of the Week, presented by the Tennessee Highway Safety Office and Paul Winkler Investing. Coverage starts Friday night at 6 with Will Bowling and Lucas Panzica on your home for high school football. 104.5 The Zone.
to recap, basically, the 3 hours of the radio show, if you missed any of it, you could go check out the podcast. I think it was all over the place. I had a good time. I know Lucas didn't have a good time. How are you? You look like the meme of the restaurant with the Popeyes chicken worker after the chicken sandwich came out, where she's just sitting on the bench, slumped over and clearly exhausted.
That is how I feel.
And physically and emotionally drained. You've had your life force sucked out of you by the phone lines. Is this the worst show that you've been a part of from your standpoint, from producer duties?
The least enjoyable.
Which is unfortunate because I've had a great time today.
Yeah. Well, this is a great job. The fact that we get paid to do this is absolutely insane. So, it's okay. Most of the days are great, but I can't say the last 3 hours have been particularly fun on my end.
Well, and then at least Blaine and Mickey will be in here to make you laugh some more. Like I feel like I haven't done you that service today. I don't know how often I make you laugh organically or how often you're just giving me fake Tom Brady laughter, but I think that I have done wrong by you.
Well, some of these Urban Meyer replies will redeem that.
Oh, that's right. We didn't. Well, now is the time. Now, speaking of making fun of people quickly, tell the people what you told me about Isaiah McKenzie, who is the Buffalo Bills wide receiver, just got a $14,000 and change fine today because he refuses to wear a mask.
Yeah, so he posted the screenshot of the letter from the NFL that he was getting fined for not following protocols because he didn't wear the mask in the building. He said, all right, NFL, you win. In the screenshot in the top right, his email is included, IsaiahMcKenzie16@gmail.com, by the way. It's still up. He hasn't deleted it yet.
By the way, he says, look at you.
But, yeah, so he did not follow the protocols, and the NFL then fined him, and he said, oh, you win, NFL, which he's right. They did win because he's going to pay that money, and now his email is going to get absolutely obliterated, and he's probably going to have to delete his account.
Justice. Polls.
I'm going to make you an offer you can't refuse. Because the polls have closed and the votes have been tallied, it's time for a poll update. And he's a good boy. Buck Reising show producer and correspondent, Lucas Panzica.
All right, I want to blaze through some of these polls because I really want to focus on the replies on this Urban Meyer poll that we put up.
All righty.
So real quick, is this football season going to be just like last football season? 61% say yes.
It depresses me, but I feel it coming.
Can a two-quarterback system succeed in the NFL? 85% say no.
It sounds like they thought about it or they haven't ruled it out in New England, but I don't think that's going to happen because they have to protect Cam Newton-Seco.
And who is the most slept-on NFL quarterback? Sam Darnold, Joe Burrow, Tua Tagovailoa, or Teddy Two Gloves? 33% say it is Teddy. 35% say Joe Burrow. 17% Darnold. 15% Tua Tagovailoa.
Yeah, we had a whole-ass sports talk radio show planned out today, and you guys completely just knocked me off my course. Damn you, Ryan Tannehill. Get better soon.
So, what quote-unquote health problem, which I don't know, maybe this isn't the best day.
Yeah, I think we...
Now that I read that out loud.
You were so excited to make fun of Urban Meyer's health, and now you're scared.
Well, we're plugging through it. What quote-unquote health problem causes Urban Meyer to step down in Jacksonville?
Now, quick context, because we didn't get to this today. There's a report from Fox News today that Pete Prisco, who lives in Jacksonville, who covers the NFL for CBS, says players are pissed at Urban Meyer already, and now they're voicing their concerns to the media.
Shocker. And we've already seen Urban hands-on-knees Meyer on the sideline of a preseason game. Couldn't handle losing in a preseason game.
Tough scene.
So, Puka says cardiac. just one word. Just cardiac.
Yeah.
Dane Kinderland says ED.
Why, they just think that... So what did they think? They think Urban Meyer needs a blue chew to get back out there on the sideline?
Josh says.
Don't ask me how I know what that is.
Josh says he'll fake a heart attack when Derrick Henry goes off against the Jaguars again. Todd Parker says losing itis. It's not contagious, but it'll put a hurting on you.
Yeah, it'll keep you down. You may need a. No, I can't make COVID jokes because people are actually getting super sick. And
Music City Miracle says I don't know if being hired by Notre Dame or USC is a health problem. Alaska Titan says having the big sad. He put the trademark symbol on the big sad from Cutting Tim Tebow.
Oh God.
Barrett says 13 lossitis.
Yep.
Darren says losing.
And that's an improvement, by the way, 13 loss-itis.
It would be. It would be a step up. Flea says losing 17 games. Caleb says chronic stubbed toe. Rich says 0-17 fever.
Yeah. This is Lucas was right. This is a poll that Lucas came up with. He said, just leave it open-ended, and I'm sure the responses will be gold.
They've been good. Tone says blood pressure, and Sid says when King Henry throws a Jaguar DB into him on the sideline.
Physically picks him up and throws him Josh Norman style into Urban Meyer, and then Urban Meyer will have some kind of obscure health anomaly pop up, and it'll be, by transitive property through one of his defensive backs off of the arm of Derrick Henry.
Well, it'll either be that or to focus on spending time with family before then taking a college job 6 months later. One or the other.
See, we finally got it in. I told you we were going to laugh at Urban Meyer today. We did it. We did it.
Promise kept.
I feel like we've accomplished everything that we needed to do, even though we didn't, do half the show that we planned. But it's fine because it was a fun one today. Blaine and Mickey are going to continue to have fun with you guys coming up next. They will carry Mike Vrabel's press conference live on Zoom at 1:30, so be sure you're listening to that. I'm sure the head coach will have updates, and for me, I will see you tomorrow on a Friday.
We have the best broadcasters in the NFL, so why wouldn't you want Mike Keith and Coach Mack on your smartphone?
He can run this thing. 40, 45, 50, 45, Tannehill to the 41. What an effort!
Hear every Titans game by downloading the 104.5 The Zone app.